that Thursday night football game, what is it? The Vikings had 4 turnovers in the
fumbles.
4 fumbles in that game, which was crazy. And like you had Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson fumbled the ball out of the end zone. Believe they had a muffed punt in that game as well. And then, you know, the one and only Alexander Mattison with a fumble in that game. And then it was still a 1-score game. And that was a game we were talking about. Like maybe Kirk can start to change the narrative. He had done pretty well on Thursday Night Football. In this game, I thought Kirk Cousins played a really good game outside of the fumble. He just didn't have the ball.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles, I think they had like 42 minutes of time of possession. Like they owned the time of clock. And even in the first quarter, like they had the ball for 2.5 minutes. Kind of hard to get a rhythm going when that's the case. This Vikings team, I have a feeling this team is going to get hot in the second half. But so far, I mean, it's really their turnovers that's been the big problem. 4 turnovers in this game. Week 1, they had 4 turnovers as well. They're just playing sloppy football. I think they should have won against the Bucks if they could just piece it together. And even this Eagles game, I mean, Justin Jefferson nearly tied it had he just held on. And even if he just didn't go for the touchdown, that would have been
14-10.
That would have been a lot closer of a game. And then, you know, for the Eagles, they played good defensively overall. They made some big plays, but I'm still sort of worried about their rhythm. I think they kind of have to piece it together. Jalen Hurts has been a little bit more of a gambler this year. He got the big contract. He's well earned of it. But big takeaway for the Vikings, please trade for Jonathan Taylor. Good God. For the fantasy believers that had, you know, Alexander Mattison and said, yes, this guy was a dog for 8 games over the last 5 years. He's going to be the bell cow. No, he's not. He has rushed for less than 3 yards a carry since he started this season. He's not the guy. Go out and get Jonathan Taylor, please.
Yeah, and I definitely thought Alexander Mattison was more of a James Conner character, where James Conner works very well in a 2-back set where you had, even with Chase Edmonds in Carolina, it was definitely a dual system. And then he had that 1 year where he had a bazillion touchdowns. That's just because we had dogs everywhere like D-Hop, AJ Green, Rondell Moore, guys, and Christian Kirk, guys kicking ass all over the field. So with Alexander Mattison, can you come in and fill in for Dalvin Cook? Sure. We don't have any tape on you, and you can surprise some people with 128 yards. But when we have time to game plan on you, and you're not going to be someone that makes up for a poor offensive line, which the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, if you watch the quarterbacks documentary, got hit the most last year. He's under fire in these games, and they really have to figure out a running game, because I like Jordan Addison, I like TJ Hawkinson, and I like Justin Jefferson, but sometimes feels like Cousins doesn't have enough time to get the ball out. And then Justin Jefferson was a monster in this game. And I felt like it really came down to, I get why you want the touchdown, but sometimes you just need to know when to go down. But however, Kirk Cousins fumbled. Enough people fumbled. It was just when it happened, you know? It's like it happened when you could have had a chance to go up 14-10 going into the half. Instead, you gave them a ball, and then they went up 13, I believe, at the end of the first half. And then as far as the Eagles, am I worried about the offense? Not really, because when you have a new offensive coordinator in there, you're trying to get someone like D Swift involved in the running game. And D Swift had an absolute monster of a game. And sometimes when it's Thursday Night Football and you're running the ball, it's a short week, limited preparation. And Brian Flores' defense was playing really well, and they were getting to the passers. So sometimes it's just fine to lean on a running back. If D Swift has it going, just lean on that guy. I'm not going to panic with the Eagles. And I think the Bengals came out slow last year. The Patriots have come out slow in the past, and you're coming off a Super Bowl victory. I think Sirianni's like, this is a marathon. We got some strikes down the field to Devontae Smith. Jalen Hurts has missed some pass, but we still need some time to get in a rhythm. It's still a new play caller for Jalen Hurts. He lost his offensive coordinator, and that's just something that people overlook and underestimate. Like, yeah, they'll just not skip a beat. It's like Mark Sanchez and Golden Tate were both on the herd, and they're like, no, the relationship with the offensive coordinator and the quarterback is really important. So he's doing a little bit. He has to get familiar with them. And then I think with the run game going, just let it ride. Like, I'm not too worried about it. And then with the Vikings, I think they'll start to pull it together. Maybe they definitely need to go out there and trade for a running back. But overall, thought it was a really good game. Glad the Vikings were able to move it up and down the field. And then my biggest takeaway for the Vikings, too, was Brian Flores was my biggest point with them. I really want to see how that defense starts to evolve. And they definitely got better this week, and there's some times they gave the Eagles a lot of trouble. I don't know if that's because it was a short week on a Thursday night, but they did a really good job prepping, and they didn't get annihilated or embarrassed on national television, and they hung around. So I think this Vikings team overall could be better than next year, but you got to figure out the running game because you're going to be going nowhere slowly in the NFC if you can't run the football, especially the Cowboys pass rush, the 49ers pass rush. You have to keep those defenses honest because Kirk Cousins, not the most mobile guy in the world. And if people can tee off on him, you're going to get some fumbles because he's not the strongest guy in the world. And he's going to have to put the ball into some tight windows to get it out fast, which can cause some turnovers as well.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, you talk about Brian Flores. There was a point between pretty much the first half where if their defense broke, that would have been a blowout because 3 turnovers in the first 2 quarters and them being able to limit them to field goals is what honestly kept them in this game. So shout out to Brian Flores. I think that if they're not facing a team as much of a juggernaut as the Eagles, I think they do pull away and get a win. But shout out to Brian Flores. And then honestly, even someone like Kareem Hunt, I think, is somebody that you can look at and say, okay, I think that they could be a formidable back. Just get someone that's has a little bit more of a burst than Alexander Mattson.
Yeah.
I think he would be a fine goal line guy, but overall, I would shoot for someone, not that he's available, but someone like a Josh Kelly or someone someone that's cheap that can move between the tackles and break some tackles along the way. I think Alexander Mattson's much better as a goal line guy.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And then the Vikings definitely have a lot of work to do. The Eagles, I'm not too worried about it. Like, I'm not worried about their offense. I think the pass game, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get that rhythm, get that timing back with your receivers. I know AJ Brown was upset on the sideline, and I was kind of annoyed by AJ Brown complaining that he wasn't getting the ball when they were up 14. I was like, I get you want your stats. You also got your money from Philadelphia. Everyone knows you're one of the best wide receivers in this league. Sometimes it's just not your night. So I thought that's the time where you see like the Belichickian, like, oh, I don't want a star wide receiver. It's like, that's kind of the case for it because if your guy isn't getting the ball and he's complaining when you're up 14 points, that's a little, I don't love that.
Yeah, I don't love that either, especially because you could tell that their game plan going into the game was we're going to pound the rock, we're going to drain time of possession. And that's exactly what they did. And in the meantime, your buddy on the other side, Devontae Smith, had a day. I mean, connected on a lot of big plays. So, I mean, as a teammate, you should be congratulating someone like Devontae Smith, who many people were questionable during the draft. Is he too small? And then he went out and he's balled since he's joined Philadelphia. And I think this year he could even have even more of a renaissance and even get better as he goes along. And you still led the league in targets, or led the game in targets, that is. So it's not like you didn't have opportunities. It's one of those nights where they need DeAndre Swift to take possession. They need someone like Dallas Goedert to make some plays. And Devontae Smith was just open. And that's okay. That's the problem with someone like him or Stephon Diggs, or in the past, someone like a Terrell Owens.
Yeah.
That's why someone like Belichick, I mean, he's got his own issues with wide receivers, but I see in that case why he doesn't necessarily do those things.
Yeah, I see why he doesn't do it. But overall, I thought it was a good game on Thursday night. I was expecting kind of a blowout with Philadelphia. I was like, there's a chance that the Vikings could upset them if we get kind of the Eagles from the Patriots game, but they were able to get a drive whenever they needed to. And then I like that they just stuck to the run game and they stick what's working with you and not going away with it, getting too pass happy, which I feel like is something like a Kellen Moore really doesn't have a great feel for when to run and pass the ball. Kyle Shanahan can have some issues. Even Andy Reid sometimes has those issues where he's just pass. So I like that Sirianni was able to keep his team disciplined. Hey, we're going to run the rock. And then when they had that blow up on the sideline, Sirianni popped over and he was like, hey, no, we're not doing this. So I like that he shut it down immediately.
One last shout out I want to say for this game, the upgrade from Miles Sanders to D Swift.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders is a nice running back, don't get me wrong, but D Swift, a lot more elusive, a lot more pop in his game. I feel like he could have a renaissance as well this year, where he has a great offensive line like he had in Detroit, but I feel like Philadelphia is a better fit for him overall. They have other running backs that can kind of complement him, like a Rashard Penny, like a Kenneth Gainwell.
Boston Scott,
a good goal line guy as well. So I think their running game this year could be even better than it was last year. This is a team that was top 5 in rushing last year. So credit to him. I think they got him for like a 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
Massive steal. And I think he's going to have a great season.
Yeah, and I think with D Swift, we saw in Hard Knocks, his problem was never talent. It was always, can he stay on the field? He seemed like a little disinterested in Detroit the past few years, and he needed a new environment. And if he can stay healthy behind the Eagles offensive line, they have a little bit more of a pass rush scheme that I feel like fits him better. So you add a different element to that Philadelphia Eagles offense. So I'm excited to see how it progresses.